in the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, where the rivers Tigris and Euphrates flowed like lifeblood through the Fertile Crescent. There existed a kingdom whose power and influence would shape the course of history for millennia. Assyria, a land known for its fierce warriors and grand cities, was on the cusp of a new era. The 18th century BCE marked a turning point, one where ambition, warfare, and divine favor intertwined to create an empire that would stretch from the edges of the Persian Gulf to the mountains of Anatolia. At the heart of this empire, a queen would rise, one whose influence would be felt not only in the palace but across the entire realm, shaping the destiny of kings and warriors alike. Her name was Tashmetu-zericha, and her story begins not in the palace halls or on the battlefield, but in the intricate web of alliances that defined the ancient Near East. The marriage between Tashmetu-zericha and Shamshi-Adad I, the powerful king of Assyria, was more than a union of two people. It was a strategic alliance that would lay the foundation for the empire's expansion. Tashmetu-zericha was not just a queen, she was a diplomat, a mother, and a ruler in her own right, whose actions would resonate throughout the ages. In the years leading up to their marriage, Assyria was far from the mighty empire it would one day become. Under Shamshi-Adad I, Assyria was a kingdom that struggled for dominance in a region filled with rival city-states and shifting allegiances. Shamshi-Adad, a warrior king of great skill, had already proven himself on the battlefield, but his ambitions required more than military prowess. To secure his place in history, he needed alliances that could strengthen his rule and ensure the survival of his empire. And so, when the opportunity to marry Tashmetu-zericha arose, Shamshi-Adad seized it, recognizing the potential it held for both political and personal gain. Tashmetu-zericha was the daughter of a noble family, her lineage reaching back to powerful kings and rulers. Her beauty, intelligence, and political acumen were well known, making her an ideal match for the ambitious Shamshi-Adad. The union between them was not one born of love in the romantic sense, but one of necessity and strategy. However, what began as a political arrangement would soon grow into a partnership of mutual respect and admiration. Tashmetu-zericha's influence would prove invaluable, not just in securing her husband's reign but in shaping the very fabric of Assyria itself. Her marriage to Shamshi-Adad marked the beginning of a new chapter for the Assyrian kingdom. It was not just her status as queen that would come to define her role, it was her intellect, her ability to navigate the treacherous waters of politics, and her unwavering dedication to the empire's survival. Tashmetu-zericha was not merely content to sit idly by as her husband expanded his empire. She understood that the strength of a ruler lay not only in his army but in the alliances he forged, the loyalty he inspired, and the stability he maintained within his own court. In the early years of their marriage, Tashmetu-zericha was not simply a queen consort, she was Shamshi-Adad's closest advisor, his confidant, and his most trusted ally. Together, they worked to secure Assyria's borders, dealing with threats from neighboring kingdoms and ensuring that Shamshi-Adad's reign would be one of stability and growth. But beyond the political and military spheres, Tashmetu-zericha's influence extended into the personal realm as well. As the mother of Shamshi-Adad's children, she was tasked with ensuring the continuation of the royal bloodline, preparing her sons to one day take up the mantle of leadership. The first years of their reign were marked by several key events that would define not only Tashmetu-zericha's role but the future of Assyria itself. The kingdom, under Shamshi-Adad's leadership, embarked on a series of military campaigns that would expand Assyria's territory and strengthen its position among the great powers of the ancient world. But these campaigns were not without their challenges. Shamshi-Adad's forces faced opposition from powerful enemies, including the city-state of Mari to the south and the rebellious tribes of the Zagros Mountains to the east. Tashmetu-zericha, despite being a woman in a male-dominated society, played an instrumental role in the decisions that shaped Assyria's military strategy. She was not a mere figurehead, she was a voice of reason, a strategist in her own right, and a queen who understood the importance of securing her kingdom's future. It is said that during one particularly difficult campaign, when Shamshi-Adad's forces were stalled by a series of unexpected defeats, it was Tashmetu-zericha who proposed a new strategy, one that involved negotiating with neutral tribes in the region to secure safe passage for Assyrian troops. Her diplomatic skills were unmatched, and her efforts helped turn the tide of war in Shamshi-Adad's favor. As the years passed, Tashmetu-zericha's influence only grew. With each victory, Shamshi-Adad's empire expanded, and so did her role as a queen. She became known not only for her beauty but for her wisdom and insight. She was a queen who understood the delicate balance of power, both within her court and in the wider world. Her ability to navigate complex political situations, forge alliances, and manage the affairs of the kingdom was unparalleled. But it was not only her political influence that would leave a lasting legacy. As the mother of Shamshi-Adad's sons, Tashmetu-zericha was also a matriarch, shaping the next generation of Assyrian rulers. Her sons were not only heirs to the throne but also products of her upbringing, trained in the ways of leadership, warfare, and diplomacy. Tashmetu-zericha was determined that her children would continue the work she and Shamshi-Adad had begun. She ensured that they were well educated in the ways of statecraft, prepared for the challenges that awaited them when the time came to take the throne. Though her influence was undeniable, Tashmetu-zericha's legacy was not without its challenges. As the empire grew, so did the political intrigue within the royal court. Rivalries emerged among the nobles, and power struggles threatened to destabilize the kingdom. But through it all, Tashmetu-zericha remained a steadying force, a reminder of the strength that could be found in unity and loyalty to the throne. Her contributions to Assyria's success were not always recognized in the annals of history, but her impact on the empire and her family was immeasurable. In the end, Tashmetu-zericha's legacy would not be defined by the battles her husband won or the conquests they achieved together. It would be defined by the quiet strength she brought to the court, her unwavering support for her husband's vision, and the future she helped shape for her children. Her story is one that, though often overshadowed by the more prominent figures of history, remains a testament to the power of women in the ancient world, women whose actions were crucial to the survival and prosperity of empires. Long before Shamshi-Adad I became the king of Assyria, his name was already whispered among the leaders of the ancient Near East. The son of a powerful Assyrian noble, Shamshi-Adad was born into a world where political intrigue and military strategy were the currency of survival. His early life was marked by a series of tumultuous events, a growing sense of ambition and a drive to restore Assyria to its former glory after years of fragmentation and decline. Shamshi-Adad, even as a young man, understood that the empire he would one day inherit was not a land of wealth and power but rather one scattered and vulnerable, ruled over by competing city-states and fragmented kingdoms. Assyria, during this period, had lost much of its previous power. It was a kingdom once feared for its military prowess, its legendary armies, and its brutal warriors. But by the time Shamshi-Adad ascended to power, Assyria was merely a shadow of its former self. With much of its territory in disarray, the land was divided, and various rival factions vied for control. Shamshi-Adad's ambition was clear: he would restore Assyria's prominence, and he would not allow its fate to be dictated by lesser kings and city-states. However, Shamshi-Adad did not act alone. His story is intertwined with the story of Tashmetu-zericha, the woman who would stand beside him and share in his vision for the empire. Her marriage to Shamshi-Adad was no mere ceremonial event, it was a calculated alliance that would prove to be the cornerstone of his reign. At the time of their marriage, Shamshi-Adad was already a prominent figure in the Assyrian military, known for his tactical brilliance and his ability to unify disparate forces under his banner. But the path to the throne was not as simple as commanding troops on the battlefield. Shamshi-Adad understood that, in order to secure his power, he needed not only military victories but also alliances that could bring stability to the kingdom and legitimacy to his rule. And Tashmetu-zericha, with her noble lineage and political insight, was the perfect match for this endeavor. Their union, though political, soon became one of deep respect and collaboration. Tashmetu-zericha's intelligence and diplomatic acumen were crucial to Shamshi-Adad's early successes. Where others might have seen her as a mere consort, Shamshi-Adad recognized her as a partner, one whose wisdom extended far beyond the confines of the palace walls. She understood the delicate balance of power that was required to govern an empire, and her advice often proved invaluable. In the early years of their marriage, Shamshi-Adad focused much of his attention on the military aspect of his rule. He began by consolidating power within the heart of Assyria, uniting the various tribes and city-states that had been in conflict for decades. Shamshi-Adad's early campaigns were marked by swift and brutal victories, as he sought to establish his dominance over the surrounding regions. With each conquest, his reputation grew, and his power solidified. But Shamshi-Adad knew that without the proper alliances, his empire would remain fragile. That's where Tashmetu-zericha played a pivotal role. As Shamshi-Adad launched his military campaigns, Tashmetu-zericha's influence over the court was growing. While her husband was away on the battlefield, she held the reins of the capital, ensuring that the administrative aspects of Assyria's expansion remained intact. Her governance skills were as sharp as his military strategies, and she understood the importance of maintaining order within the kingdom while Shamshi-Adad focused on expansion. Her political savvy was most evident when she worked with her husband to secure alliances with neighboring city-states and powerful kingdoms. Through a combination of diplomacy and strategic marriages, she helped to strengthen Assyria's position in the region. Tashmetu-zericha understood that the stability of Assyria relied not only on its military might but on its ability to maintain diplomatic ties and foster loyalty among its neighboring states. She was instrumental in forging these relationships, making sure that Assyria's rise to power would not be hindered by external threats. Her efforts proved successful. Under Shamshi-Adad's leadership, Assyria grew in both power and territory. The kingdom began to expand rapidly, conquering lands from the Euphrates River to the Zagros Mountains. Shamshi-Adad's campaigns brought glory to Assyria, and with each victory, his status as one of the great rulers of the ancient world was solidified. But these victories were not won alone. Tashmetu-zericha's support and guidance were essential in ensuring the stability and prosperity of Assyria during this critical time. Together, Shamshi-Adad and Tashmetu-zericha built an empire that would endure for centuries. While Shamshi-Adad's name became synonymous with military conquests, it was Tashmetu-zericha's quiet yet unwavering presence that ensured those conquests led to lasting success. She helped to guide Assyria through the turbulence of its early years, laying the groundwork for the empire's eventual golden age. As Shamshi-Adad's power grew, so did the importance of his family. The royal court, now firmly under the control of the king and queen, became a center of political intrigue and strategic planning. It was in this environment that Shamshi-Adad and Tashmetu-zericha raised their children, teaching them the ways of leadership, diplomacy, and war. They understood that the future of Assyria would rest in the hands of their sons, and they ensured that the royal bloodline was prepared to carry on their legacy. Tashmetu-zericha's influence over the education and upbringing of her children was profound. She instilled in them the same values that had guided her and Shamshi-Adad throughout their reign: loyalty, strength, and wisdom. Her children were not simply heirs to a throne. They were future rulers trained to preserve and expand the empire their parents had worked so hard to build. In this way, Tashmetu-zericha's influence extended beyond her own lifetime, ensuring that her vision for Assyria would continue for generations. As Shamshi-Adad's empire grew, so did the complexities of governance. The newly acquired territories brought with them new challenges: resistance from conquered peoples, the need for integration, and the constant threat of rebellion. But Tashmetu-zericha was undeterred. She continued to support her husband and children, using her intelligence and political insight to guide Assyria through its most challenging times. She was not merely a queen consort, she was the silent force behind the throne. A queen whose influence was felt far beyond the palace walls. And so, the rise of Shamshi-Adad I, the great Assyrian king, was not just the rise of a military leader but the rise of a kingdom that had been carefully shaped by the wisdom and guidance of his queen. Tashmetu-zericha. Her influence was felt not only in Assyria's victories but in its stability, its alliances, and its future. Together, they had created an empire that would stand the test of time. When Shamshi-Adad I married Tashmetu-zericha, it was a union that combined power, political savvy, and the promise of stability. Tashmetu-zericha, with her noble lineage and her understanding of diplomacy, was the perfect partner for a king who sought to restore Assyria to its rightful place among the powerful kingdoms of the ancient world. Yet, as much as their marriage was strategic, It was also one of mutual respect, with Tashmetu-zericha quickly proving herself not just as the queen consort but as an essential force in the kingdom's governance. The early years of their marriage were marked by a delicate balance of duties and roles. While Shamshi-Adad focused on his military campaigns, Tashmetu-zericha took on the crucial responsibility of managing the day-to-day affairs of the royal court. As Shamshi-Adad traveled far and wide to secure Assyria's borders and expand its territories, she remained at the capital, ensuring that the kingdom's administration ran smoothly. Her leadership skills were evident from the start. She did not merely oversee the palace but also acted as an intermediary between the nobility, military commanders, and foreign envoys. Shamshi-Adad's campaigns often took him away from the capital for long periods, leaving Tashmetu-zericha with a significant role in governance. She worked tirelessly to ensure the kingdom's stability, making important decisions about taxation, the allocation of resources, and the welfare of the people. It was said that her presence in the court brought a sense of order and direction to the often chaotic and treacherous world of ancient Assyrian politics. While Shamshi-Adad's name was synonymous with military conquest, Tashmetu-zericha's influence was felt in the very structure of the empire. Her ability to keep the wheels of governance turning allowed her husband to focus on securing his military victories. Her role as a queen was multifaceted. She was not only a political leader but also a mother. In the years following their marriage, Tashmetu-zericha bore children, cementing the royal bloodline and ensuring that Assyria's future would be in the hands of her sons. The birth of her children was a joyous occasion, not just for the royal couple but for the entire kingdom. The birth of heirs was seen as a sign of the dynasty's strength and continuity. Tashmetu-zericha, though a queen of immense power, was also a loving and dedicated mother who ensured that her children would be raised with the values of leadership, responsibility, and loyalty to the crown. As a mother, Tashmetu-zericha took great care in the upbringing of her sons. While Shamshi-Adad focused on military campaigns, she personally oversaw the education of her children, ensuring that they were well versed in the ways of governance, warfare, and diplomacy. She knew that her children would one day inherit the vast empire that she and Shamshi-Adad had built, and she took it upon herself to prepare them for the challenges that lay ahead. The young princes were taught by the finest tutors and mentors, many of whom were loyal to the royal family and had themselves been part of the kingdom's elite. Tashmetu-zericha was a hands-on mother, guiding her children with the same wisdom and foresight that had helped her navigate the intricacies of Assyrian politics. Despite the heavy responsibilities of her role as both a queen and a mother, Tashmetu-zericha found time to nurture her relationship with Shamshi-Adad. Their bond, though rooted in a strategic alliance, deepened over the years. They became not just political partners but confidants and allies, each relying on the other for strength and guidance. Shamshi-Adad, though often distant due to his military obligations, trusted his queen implicitly. He valued her counsel above all others, knowing that her judgment was as sharp as his sword. In turn, Tashmetu-zericha relied on her husband's military prowess and leadership, respecting his ability to command armies and expand the empire. Their marriage was a partnership, one in which both played vital roles in the kingdom's success. Shamshi-Adad's military campaigns brought glory to Assyria, while Tashmetu-zericha's leadership ensured that the kingdom remained stable and prosperous. The royal court flourished under her guidance, and the people of Assyria looked to her not just as a queen but as a symbol of strength and wisdom. Yet, the early years of their reign were not without challenges. As Assyria expanded, the threat of rebellion and unrest grew. Conquered peoples, uneasy with their new rulers, often rose up against Assyrian control. Shamshi-Adad's military campaigns were frequently met with resistance, and he found himself engaged in a constant struggle to maintain order within his empire. During these times of uncertainty, Tashmetu-zericha's role became even more critical. She took on the task of managing the internal affairs of the kingdom, ensuring that the royal administration remained intact and that the hearts and minds of the Assyrian people were kept loyal to the throne. One of the greatest challenges Tashmetu-zericha faced during this period was the growing tensions between the various factions within Assyria itself. The Assyrian nobility, though generally loyal to the crown, was not always united. Rivalries between noble families threatened to destabilize the kingdom. and Tashmetu-zericha found herself mediating between the various factions, seeking to maintain unity within the royal court. Her ability to navigate these delicate political waters earned her the respect of both the nobility and the military leaders. She worked tirelessly to keep the peace within the court, never allowing personal rivalries or ambitions to interfere with the greater good of Assyria. She was known for her calm demeanor and her ability to diffuse even the most volatile situations. Whether it was negotiating with rebellious generals or smoothing over disputes between rival factions, Tashmetu-zericha's influence was felt at every level of the kingdom. Through her efforts, the early years of their reign saw Assyria's growth and stability. Despite the challenges, under the leadership of Shamshi-Adad and the guidance of Tashmetu-zericha, Assyria began to emerge as a powerful force in the ancient world. But this was only the beginning. As Shamshi-Adad's military successes continued, Tashmetu-zericha's role would only become more vital in securing Assyria's future. The early years of their marriage were a time of both personal and political growth. Tashmetu-zericha, though initially seen as a queen consort, had quickly proven herself as an indispensable partner to her husband. Her wisdom, her leadership, and her devotion to the kingdom ensured that Assyria not only survived but thrived under Shamshi-Adad's reign. She was the quiet strength behind the throne, a queen whose influence would continue to shape Assyria for generations to come. The success of Shamshi-Adad I's reign did not simply rely on his military prowess and territorial conquests. It was, in many ways, the strategic alliances he forged, both through diplomacy and marriage, that laid the foundation for the empire's expansion and long-term stability. At the heart of these political maneuvers stood Tashmetu-zericha, whose intelligence and political savvy allowed her to shape the direction of Assyria's foreign policy and ensure the kingdom's alliances were both strong and enduring. Tashmetu-zericha was not content to simply oversee the internal affairs of the kingdom while her husband waged wars abroad. She understood that in the complex world of ancient Mesopotamian politics, a kingdom's survival depended as much on its diplomatic relationships as it did on the might of its armies. With Shamshi-Adad's ambition to expand Assyria's borders, Tashmetu-zericha took an active role in helping him navigate the shifting political landscape of the ancient Near East. Her strategic mind and ability to read the ambitions of other rulers made her a key player in Assyria's success. One of her earliest and most important contributions to Shamshi-Adad's reign was her involvement in securing alliances with neighboring states. The ancient Near East was a web of rival city-states and kingdoms, each vying for power and influence. Shamshi-Adad's military successes alone would not have been enough to guarantee Assyria's supremacy. He needed allies to help him consolidate power and ensure that Assyria's growing empire could be defended from outside threats. Tashmetu-zericha, with her diplomatic expertise, was the one who helped craft these alliances, often through marriages and pacts with influential leaders. One of the most significant alliances Tashmetu-zericha helped to broker was with the Kingdom of Mari, a powerful city-state located to the south of Assyria, in a region known for its political instability. This alliance proved crucial in securing Assyria's southern border, while Shamshi-Adad's armies were preoccupied with the northern and western territories. Tashmetu-zericha's careful diplomacy ensured that Mari remained a stable ally. Through a marriage alliance and a series of treaties, Assyria and Mari worked together to safeguard each other's interests, a partnership that allowed both kingdoms to thrive. But her diplomatic efforts did not stop there. Tashmetu-zericha also played a key role in fostering relations with the powerful kingdoms of Babylon and Elam. These kingdoms, while sometimes allies and sometimes rivals, were vital to Assyria's security and prosperity. Tashmetu-zericha understood the intricacies of these relationships and worked tirelessly to ensure that Assyria was always on favorable terms with these regional powers. Her involvement in securing peace treaties and negotiating trade agreements helped strengthen Assyria's position in the region and made her an indispensable advisor to Shamshi-Adad. Her diplomatic efforts were not confined to her marriage alliances. Tashmetu-zericha was also a skilled negotiator, capable of brokering deals that benefited Assyria. When Shamshi-Adad sought to extend Assyria's influence into the rich lands of the Zagros Mountains and the Mesopotamian plain, it was Tashmetu-zericha who helped secure non-aggression pacts with neighboring tribes and city-states. Her role in these negotiations was essential, as she not only understood the value of diplomacy but also knew when to apply pressure and when to offer concessions. She had an innate ability to balance the interests of Assyria with the delicate power dynamics of the region, making her a trusted ally to her husband and a respected figure in her own right. In the court of Assyria, Tashmetu-zericha's political power grew steadily. While Shamshi-Adad was away on military campaigns, she often took charge of the royal administration. Under her stewardship, the court flourished, and the kingdom became a center of cultural and intellectual exchange. Scholars, scribes, and diplomats from various parts of the ancient world were welcomed into the Assyrian court, where they shared knowledge and ideas that helped shape Assyrian society. Tashmetu-zericha, with her keen mind and appreciation for knowledge, fostered an environment of learning that would continue to benefit Assyria long after her time. The influence Tashmetu-zericha wielded within the royal court was not limited to political matters. As Shamshi-Adad's trusted advisor, she also played a crucial role in the selection of key officials, military commanders, and governors who would oversee Assyria's vast territories. Her guidance ensured that Assyria's administration remained strong, efficient, and capable of managing its growing empire. Tashmetu-zericha's ability to identify capable leaders and keep the political structure of Assyria intact was instrumental in the kingdom's success during this period. Her political influence extended to her family as well. As the mother of Shamshi-Adad's sons, Tashmetu-zericha knew that the future of Assyria would rest in the hands of her children. She worked closely with Shamshi-Adad to ensure that their sons were trained in the ways of leadership and warfare, preparing them to one day take their place on the throne. Tashmetu-zericha's educational efforts were not limited to military training. She also ensured that her sons understood the complexities of governance, diplomacy, and the delicate art of balancing power and alliances. Her children would inherit not only the empire but the political acumen and wisdom that she had passed down to them. In a time when the fate of an empire could hinge on the abilities of a single ruler, Tashmetu-zericha understood that the survival of Assyria required more than just strength in battle. It required a ruler who could navigate the intricate world of politics, who could manage alliances, and who could maintain stability both within the court and on the battlefield. Shamshi-Adad was that ruler, but Tashmetu-zericha was his partner in every sense of the word. Together, they created an empire that would endure for centuries, one built on a foundation of political strategy, military power, and unwavering loyalty to one another. Through her strategic alliances and diplomatic expertise, Tashmetu-zericha ensured that Assyria's rise to power was not a fleeting moment but a lasting legacy. Her political influence, combined with Shamshi-Adad's military genius, made Assyria one of the most powerful kingdoms in the ancient world. And while her contributions were often overshadowed by the exploits of her husband, it was clear that without her, Assyria's success would not have been as certain. Tashmetu-zericha was not just the queen of Assyria, she was the architect of its future. A woman whose political acumen and strategic vision helped shape the course of history. As Shamshi-Adad I's reign continued, the stability and expansion of Assyria relied not only on military conquests and diplomatic alliances but on ensuring that the royal bloodline remained strong. The birth of Tashmetu-zericha's children, particularly her sons, marked a critical moment in Assyria's history. These children were not only heirs to a throne, they were the future of the empire, a future that Tashmetu-zericha and Shamshi-Adad worked together to secure. From the moment her sons were born, Tashmetu-zericha understood the weight of their future responsibilities. While Shamshi-Adad's campaigns took him to distant lands, Tashmetu-zericha remained at the capital, guiding the upbringing of their sons with careful consideration and foresight. She knew that these young princes were the key to Assyria's continued power, and she dedicated herself to their education, ensuring they would be capable of assuming leadership when the time came. Tashmetu-zericha was no ordinary mother. While other queens might have focused solely on the maternal aspect of their roles, she blended her duties as a mother with her keen political mind. Her sons were raised with a sense of duty to Assyria, and they were taught the complexities of governance and statecraft. In addition to the traditional lessons in reading, writing, and the arts, the young princes were instructed in military tactics, strategy, and diplomacy, the very skills that had secured Shamshi-Adad's rise to power. Tashmetu-zericha's influence in this education was profound, as she not only ensured that her sons learned these vital skills but also instilled in them the values that had guided her and Shamshi-Adad throughout their reign: loyalty, integrity, and the importance of unity within the empire. One of the most significant lessons Tashmetu-zericha taught her sons was the importance of balance. She emphasized that, while military strength was crucial for the expansion and defense of the empire, it was diplomacy and the careful management of relationships that ensured its survival. She also made it clear that the strength of Assyria did not lie solely in the king's ability to command an army but in the ability to govern justly and wisely. Through her teachings, Tashmetu-zericha sought to create a generation of leaders who would not only be fierce warriors but capable rulers, men who understood the complexities of both battle and governance. Her guidance was not limited to the formal education of her sons. Tashmetu-zericha made sure to involve her children in the day-to-day running of the kingdom. As Shamshi-Adad spent long periods of time on military campaigns, she took the opportunity to bring her sons into the fold of political decision-making. They sat in on council meetings, observed the workings of the royal court, and accompanied her during visits to the military camps where they learned firsthand about the struggles and triumphs of Assyria's armies. These early experiences would serve them well, as they grew accustomed to the demands and responsibilities that would one day fall upon their shoulders. While Shamshi-Adad was a warrior king, Tashmetu-zericha's role was not to create just warriors but wise rulers. She encouraged her sons to ask questions, to seek knowledge beyond the realm of battle, and to think critically about the future of Assyria. Her sons' education was balanced between the intellectual and the practical, between diplomacy and warfare. This combination of skills would be essential when the time came for them to rule. In the early years, Shamshi-Adad was deeply involved in the training of his sons. He took great pride in preparing them for the rigors of military life, ensuring that they were capable of commanding troops, planning campaigns, and leading armies into battle. But Tashmetu-zericha's influence tempered these lessons with a more profound understanding of the empire's needs. While Shamshi-Adad's military experience was unparalleled, Tashmetu-zericha's wisdom in governance and diplomacy provided a complementary education for the princes. One of her most significant contributions was in the careful grooming of her sons to one day hold the reins of power. She ensured that they understood the importance of loyalty to the crown and the empire. Tashmetu-zericha worked closely with Shamshi-Adad to ensure that their sons were not only seen as heirs to the throne but as future rulers who would serve the empire's interests above all else. She taught them that a ruler's duty was to the people, to the land, and to the legacy of Assyria. As the years passed, Tashmetu-zericha's influence over her sons only deepened. The princes grew into young men who were capable of leadership in their own right. Thanks to their mother's careful guidance, they understood the intricacies of Assyrian politics, the importance of alliances, and the need for both strength and diplomacy in leadership. But Tashmetu-zericha also understood the importance of instilling in her sons a sense of compassion for the people they would one day rule. She taught them that a wise ruler knew when to show mercy and when to be firm, understanding that true leadership required not only intelligence and strength but empathy as well. Tashmetu-zericha's influence extended beyond her own family. She was deeply involved in the court's affairs and worked to ensure that her sons were surrounded by capable advisors who would help them navigate the complexities of ruling an empire. She knew that a king could not rule alone and that a strong network of trusted individuals was essential for success. Her sons, as they grew into adulthood, began to forge their own relationships with key members of the court, further strengthening their positions as future leaders. The relationship between Tashmetu-zericha and her sons was not one of mere instruction, it was one of mentorship. She understood the unique challenges they would face as rulers and prepared them not just for the glory of empire but for the burdens of leadership. Tashmetu-zericha's sons were not just raised to rule, they were raised to protect Assyria's legacy, to preserve its power, and to ensure that the empire she and Shamshi-Adad had built would continue to thrive long after they were gone. As Shamshi-Adad's reign progressed, the princes became more involved in the empire's military campaigns and administrative affairs. They were not just heirs to the throne, they were already playing vital roles in the empire's day-to-day operations. Under Tashmetu-zericha's watchful eye, they learned how to lead their own armies, negotiate with foreign rulers, and manage the intricacies of governance. Their education, combined with the influence of their father's military experience and their mother's wisdom, ensured that Assyria's future would be in capable hands. In the years that followed, as Shamshi-Adad's empire continued to grow and evolve, Tashmetu-zericha's legacy would be carried forward not just by her own actions but by the actions of her sons. She had ensured that the future of Assyria was in safe hands, and the empire would continue to thrive for generations to come. As Assyria's empire expanded, so too did the complexities and dangers that threatened to unravel the delicate balance of power. The further Shamshi-Adad I stretched his influence, the more difficult it became to maintain control over the vast territories he had conquered. Internal unrest, external threats, and the shifting political alliances that had once helped secure Assyria's position now became sources of tension and conflict. These were the challenges that would define the later years of Shamshi-Adad's reign and shape Tashmetu-zericha's legacy. The early years of Shamshi-Adad's rule had been characterized by military victories and strategic alliances. However, as Assyria's territories grew larger, the problems of governance and military logistics became increasingly complex. Shamshi-Adad's military conquests brought him much glory, but they also sowed the seeds of future unrest. Conquered peoples, though initially subdued by Assyria's superior armies, began to resent the foreign rule imposed upon them. Rebellions broke out in several key regions of the empire, and Shamshi-Adad found himself increasingly stretched thin, having to deal with multiple fronts at once. During this period of crisis, it was Tashmetu-zericha who proved to be a steadying influence in Assyria. While Shamshi-Adad was away on military campaigns or trying to suppress uprisings, she took charge of managing the empire's internal affairs. The royal court, always a hotbed of political intrigue, was thrown into disarray as rival factions within Assyria sought to exploit the instability. Tashmetu-zericha's presence in the court was more important than ever. She knew that maintaining the loyalty of the nobility and the military commanders was essential to keeping the empire intact. She acted swiftly to address the political instability within Assyria. Using her diplomatic skills, she brokered peace with several of the more influential rebel leaders, offering them positions of power and influence within the royal court in exchange for their loyalty to Shamshi-Adad. These concessions, though risky, were necessary for the survival of the empire. Tashmetu-zericha understood that, at times, compromise was the only way to maintain control over the vast territories Assyria had conquered. She was not afraid to make difficult decisions, and her ability to navigate the treacherous waters of internal politics was unmatched. But her efforts did not stop there. She also worked tirelessly to bolster the morale of the Assyrian people, who were beginning to feel the strain of prolonged warfare and instability. Under her guidance, the kingdom's administrative apparatus remained intact, and the economic foundation of the empire was preserved. Tashmetu-zericha implemented policies to ensure that food and supplies continued to flow to the capital and that the military was properly equipped to deal with the various uprisings and external threats. Her keen management skills kept the wheels of the empire turning even as her husband faced the physical and emotional toll of his military campaigns. Perhaps the greatest challenge Tashmetu-zericha faced during this time was the growing division between Assyria's military elite and the nobility. As Shamshi-Adad became more consumed with his battles, his generals and nobles grew restless. Some sought to consolidate power for themselves, leading to power struggles within the court. Tashmetu-zericha, ever the strategist, worked behind the scenes to ensure that no faction gained too much influence. She was the quiet force that kept the court's rivalries in check, ensuring that the unity of Assyria's leadership remained intact. While Shamshi-Adad was engaged in military campaigns, it was Tashmetu-zericha who acted as the empire's primary caretaker. She ensured that Assyria's territorial gains were preserved and that the empire's diplomatic relations were managed with care. Her influence extended to all corners of the kingdom, from the royal palace to the far-flung provinces. She used her connections to strengthen Assyria's alliances, ensuring that enemy states were kept at bay and that there was no opportunity for an uprising to gain momentum. The political and military crises of this time would have broken many lesser rulers. But Tashmetu-zericha's calm and steady hand guided Assyria through the storm. She was not simply a queen, she was a ruler in her own right. with the strength and wisdom to navigate the crises of the empire. Her contributions to Shamshi-Adad's reign, though often overshadowed by his military exploits, were no less significant. Without her guidance, Assyria might have faltered in the face of these challenges. One of the most perilous moments came when Shamshi-Adad's forces were caught in a series of ambushes while attempting to push deeper into the Zagros Mountains. Assyria's military was spread thin, and morale among the soldiers began to waver. Shamshi-Adad, suffering from a series of military defeats, began to question whether his grand ambitions were worth the cost. It was during this critical time that Tashmetu-zericha stepped in once again. While Shamshi-Adad focused on rebuilding his armies and rallying his forces, Tashmetu-zericha worked tirelessly behind the scenes to broker peace with several of Assyria's enemies in the region. Her diplomatic skills were tested to their limits, but Tashmetu-zericha succeeded in securing a temporary ceasefire with key rival factions. This allowed Shamshi-Adad to regroup and reorganize his forces without the threat of immediate attack. While Shamshi-Adad focused on military matters, Tashmetu-zericha managed the delicate negotiations with both enemy and ally, keeping Assyria's position in the region secure. This brief period of peace allowed Assyria to recover and reassert itself as a dominant power. In the midst of these crises, Tashmetu-zericha also faced personal challenges. The stress of managing an empire on the brink of collapse weighed heavily on her. Yet, she never faltered. As Shamshi-Adad's trusted advisor, she remained his pillar of support, offering counsel and wisdom during the darkest days of the empire's struggle. Even when the pressure mounted, Tashmetu-zericha maintained her composure, demonstrating the strength and resilience that would define her legacy. The crisis passed, and Assyria emerged from the period of turmoil stronger than before. Though Shamshi-Adad's military conquests had brought Assyria to the brink of collapse, Tashmetu-zericha's diplomatic and administrative genius had preserved the empire's unity and ensured its survival. Through her efforts, Assyria not only weathered the storm but emerged as a power that would continue to shape the ancient world for generations to come. As the Assyrian Empire grew, the demands placed upon Shamshi-Adad I escalated, while he continued to lead his forces on the front lines of military campaigns. The empire's expanding borders meant that the challenges of maintaining control over newly conquered lands were greater than ever. In the midst of these trials, Tashmetu-zericha's influence in matters of military strategy and governance became increasingly vital. She was not just a queen consort, she was a force that held the empire together during the most critical periods of war. During Shamshi-Adad's military expeditions, which often took him far from the capital, Tashmetu-zericha found herself assuming an even more prominent role in managing the empire. The queen's keen political instincts and diplomatic prowess had already been demonstrated. But during times of war, she proved to be more than just an administrator, she was a strategic leader in her own right. With a deep understanding of the military needs of Assyria, one of the defining moments of her leadership came during a critical campaign against a coalition of rebellious tribes in the Zagros Mountains. Shamshi-Adad's forces, though powerful, were spread thin, and his generals struggled to suppress the resistance from these tribes. When the situation seemed dire, Tashmetu-zericha took a bold step that would turn the tide in Assyria's favor. While Shamshi-Adad was focused on the larger military campaigns in the west, Tashmetu-zericha recognized the importance of securing Assyria's northern frontier. She understood that, without strong control over the Zagros Mountains, Assyria's expansion would be threatened by constant incursions from rebellious forces. With this knowledge, she began organizing the defense of the mountain passes and fortifying the northern territories. Using her diplomatic ties to enlist the support of local chieftains who had previously resisted Assyrian rule. She knew that in times of war, alliances were as important as military might. Her approach was unorthodox. Rather than using brute force, Tashmetu-zericha employed a strategy of persuasion and negotiation. She sent emissaries to local leaders, offering them terms of peace in exchange for loyalty to Assyria. Some accepted her offer, while others sought to test her resolve. As the situation in the mountains grew more unstable, Tashmetu-zericha, with her wisdom and determination, brokered an alliance with a rival tribe, offering them Assyrian protection in exchange for their support against common enemies. At the same time, she worked to strengthen the morale of Assyria's soldiers. The protracted wars and constant fighting had begun to wear down the army. And Shamshi-Adad's absence from the capital made it difficult for the soldiers to stay united under a single vision. Tashmetu-zericha took it upon herself to reassure the military, often speaking to the soldiers directly and reminding them of the glory and honor of serving Assyria. She implemented logistical reforms to ensure that the army was well supplied, even during difficult campaigns, and she encouraged the local population to support the military through provisions and resources. Her role in securing the northern frontier was just one example of how Tashmetu-zericha's leadership influenced Assyria's military strategy. Her approach was a blend of diplomatic savvy and practical military sense, and it became a model for future generations of Assyrian leaders. She understood that in times of war, success often depended on more than just the might of an army. The ability to secure alliances, maintain the loyalty of the people, and manage the flow of resources was just as critical to winning battles and consolidating victories. During the most intense battles, when Shamshi-Adad was engaged in direct combat with foreign forces, Tashmetu-zericha maintained control over the capital, Assur. Her leadership ensured that the city never faltered during the prolonged military campaigns. While Shamshi-Adad faced the dangers of battle, Tashmetu-zericha kept the empire running smoothly. She oversaw the administration of the royal court, made decisions on trade, and ensured that the empire's supply lines remained intact. She was the unseen hand that ensured Assyria's military efforts would not collapse under the weight of war. As Shamshi-Adad's campaigns began to show signs of success, Tashmetu-zericha's role expanded even further. It was no longer enough for her to simply manage the capital or broker alliances. Her military strategies began to shape the outcomes of Assyria's campaigns. With her influence extending beyond the royal court, she worked closely with Shamshi-Adad's generals to plan military tactics that would secure long-term dominance over newly acquired territories. The queen's understanding of military strategy, combined with her diplomatic acumen, made her an indispensable figure in Assyria's war efforts. One particularly notable moment came during an invasion by a coalition of neighboring kingdoms. Intent on breaking Assyria's growing influence in the region, Shamshi-Adad, stretched thin by other conflicts, relied on Tashmetu-zericha to manage the defense of Assur. She immediately began fortifying the city's defenses, organizing the local militia, and preparing for a siege. More than just a defensive leader, Tashmetu-zericha personally oversaw the distribution of resources, ensuring that Assur's citizens were protected and that the troops were well equipped for the coming conflict. When the siege began, Assur's defenses, bolstered by Tashmetu-zericha's leadership, held firm. While the city was under attack, Shamshi-Adad's generals took advantage of the distraction, pushing back the enemy forces from the western front. Eventually, the coalition was forced to retreat, and Assyria's dominance in the region was preserved. Tashmetu-zericha's leadership during this time was not only a testament to her strength and resilience but also to her deep understanding of the interconnectedness of military and governance. She was more than just a queen. She was a ruler whose strategic thinking kept Assyria secure during the most trying of times. Through her actions, Assyria remained unbroken, its armies replenished, its cities fortified, and its people united under the banner of the empire. In the years that followed, Tashmetu-zericha's military leadership continued to shape Assyria's success. She was no longer seen merely as the consort of a great king. She was regarded as a co-ruler, one whose influence and wisdom were essential to the empire's survival. Her actions during the times of war were instrumental in ensuring that Shamshi-Adad's vision for Assyria would come to fruition. And her legacy as a leader in both war and peace would endure long after the dust of battle had settled. In the grand halls of Assyria's royal court, power was a fluid and volatile force. While Shamshi-Adad I was known for his military prowess, it was Tashmetu-zericha's steady hand that ensured the stability of Assyria's political landscape. The kingdom, though vast and prosperous, was constantly at risk of internal division. The nobles, always eager to expand their influence, often sought ways to challenge the authority of the monarchy. Rivalries between powerful families, particularly those vying for positions of power in the court, were a constant threat to the unity that Shamshi-Adad had worked so hard to establish. But it was Tashmetu-zericha, through her deft diplomacy and unparalleled understanding of court politics, who kept these rivalries in check and ensured that the kingdom remained united. The Assyrian nobility, while loyal to the king, were not without their ambitions. Among the noble families, a complex network of alliances and rivalries existed, each vying for favor and seeking to exert influence over the royal court. In such a politically charged environment, it was easy for power struggles to erupt, threatening the stability of the empire. Tashmetu-zericha, ever the strategist, understood that to maintain Assyria's strength, she would need to manage these tensions carefully. Her role in the court was not just that of a queen consort, it was as a political figure in her own right. Shamshi-Adad, though a great warrior and a capable king, was often away from the capital, leading his armies in distant lands. During these absences, it fell to Tashmetu-zericha to oversee the inner workings of the empire. She carefully navigated the intricacies of Assyria's court, ensuring that the nobles did not engage in power struggles that might destabilize the kingdom. Through her careful influence, she helped prevent the nobility from turning on one another, and in doing so, she ensured that the monarchy remained the central authority in Assyria. One of the most significant challenges Tashmetu-zericha faced in this regard was managing the ambitions of Assyria's military commanders. While the generals were fiercely loyal to Shamshi-Adad, they also sought power and influence within the court. Tashmetu-zericha knew that these commanders were essential to the functioning of the empire. And so she worked to build relationships with them based on mutual respect, rather than allowing the generals to fall into competition with one another. She fostered an environment where they could collaborate to achieve common goals. Tashmetu-zericha's diplomacy was key to ensuring that these military leaders did not undermine each other's authority. She understood that the success of Assyria depended not only on its armies but on the cohesion of its leadership. Her ability to mediate between these powerful figures and maintain a delicate balance of power within the court was crucial to the kingdom's success. In the face of potential factionalism, she played the role of peacemaker, ensuring that the generals remained loyal to Shamshi-Adad and to each other. The queen's influence also extended to the nobles of Assyria's cities. The powerful families who ruled over the provinces often had their own agendas, and Tashmetu-zericha worked tirelessly to ensure that their ambitions did not conflict with those of the central government. Through a combination of persuasion and diplomacy, she brokered agreements with regional nobles, ensuring that they would support the monarchy and maintain stability within their territories. Her diplomatic negotiations were instrumental in keeping the peace between the capital and the provinces. And she knew that her ability to secure these allegiances was critical to Assyria's long-term success. In the royal court, Tashmetu-zericha was known not only for her intelligence but for her patience and discretion. She understood that in a kingdom as large and powerful as Assyria, the nobility would always seek to assert their influence. But rather than clashing with the powerful families, she sought to work with them, finding ways to channel their ambitions in ways that benefited the kingdom as a whole. Through this careful management, Tashmetu-zericha ensured that the power of the monarchy was never diluted by internal conflict, and Assyria remained a unified force. Her skill in managing the court was not limited to the nobles and military leaders. Tashmetu-zericha also had a keen understanding of the royal advisors and their roles. The kingdom's council of advisors was a diverse group, consisting of scribes, diplomats, and key officials who helped administer Assyria's vast territories. Tashmetu-zericha's role as queen gave her significant influence over these advisors, and she was able to leverage this power to ensure that the kingdom's administrative functions ran smoothly. She kept a close watch over the actions of the royal advisors, ensuring that they remained loyal to the throne and that their decisions were in the best interests of the empire. The queen's influence extended even to the religious leaders of Assyria. Religion was an integral part of Assyrian life, and the priests held great sway over the people. Tashmetu-zericha understood the importance of maintaining strong ties with the religious establishment, as their support was crucial to the stability of the monarchy. She worked closely with the high priests, ensuring that they remained loyal to the royal family and that religious rituals were carried out in a way that reinforced the divine right of the Assyrian kings. This close relationship with the religious leaders helped to solidify the legitimacy of Shamshi-Adad's rule, as the priest's endorsement was seen as a sign of divine favor. Tashmetu-zericha's ability to manage the nobility, military commanders, regional governors, advisors, and religious leaders allowed her to maintain a delicate equilibrium in the royal court. While the king was away, it was she who held the empire together, ensuring that Assyria's internal stability was preserved even in times of uncertainty. The queen's political acumen was unparalleled, and her efforts helped to shape the destiny of Assyria, ensuring that it remained strong and united under Shamshi-Adad's rule. Her legacy as a queen who could skillfully manage the complexities of court politics would endure long after her time. Tashmetu-zericha's influence was not just felt during her reign but also by the future generations of Assyrian rulers, who would learn from her example. Her ability to navigate the intricate web of nobility, military power, and court intrigue was key to Assyria's success, and her leadership in this realm was as critical to the empire's growth as Shamshi-Adad's military conquests. The years of Shamshi-Adad I's reign had been marked by triumphs and challenges. His military campaigns stretching across the ancient world and solidifying Assyria's position as a dominant power. Yet, as with all rulers, the time would come when his reign would come to an end. The death of Shamshi-Adad was not merely the loss of a great king and warrior, it was a defining moment in Assyria's history, one that would test the strength of its foundations. But in the shadow of this loss stood Tashmetu-zericha, whose unwavering resolve and leadership would ensure the survival of the empire she and her husband had built. Shamshi-Adad's death was a sudden and devastating blow to the Assyrian kingdom. He had led the empire to its height, but the constant demands of warfare and governance had taken their toll on his health. His death left a power vacuum that could easily have led to instability. But Tashmetu-zericha's influence ensured that the transition of power was as smooth as possible. As the mourning for Shamshi-Adad swept across the kingdom, the queen took immediate action to safeguard the future of Assyria. At the time of Shamshi-Adad's death, his sons were still young, not yet fully prepared to assume the responsibilities of the throne, although they had been trained in the ways of leadership and military strategy. They lacked the experience needed to navigate the complex political landscape of the Assyrian Empire. Tashmetu-zericha knew that it was her duty to step into the leadership void and guide her sons through this difficult period. With great wisdom and authority, she took control of the reins of the empire, ensuring that Assyria would not falter in the face of this crisis. The transition was not without its challenges. The royal court, though loyal to Shamshi-Adad, was rife with power struggles. The nobility, ever eager to seize an opportunity, began to voice their ambitions, and rival factions within the court began to maneuver for influence. Some of the military commanders, having fought alongside Shamshi-Adad, sought to take control of the empire's armed forces. Others, the regional governors, sought more autonomy from the capital. Tashmetu-zericha, however, was a seasoned politician and strategist, and she knew how to handle the shifting allegiances within the royal court. Immediately following Shamshi-Adad's death, Tashmetu-zericha called for a council of the kingdom's most trusted advisors. She worked to secure the loyalty of the generals, the noble families, and the regional governors, all while ensuring that the succession was handled in a way that preserved the unity of the empire. She knew that a divided court could spell disaster for Assyria, and she worked tirelessly to prevent any factions from gaining too much power. In her actions, she was a master of diplomacy, knowing when to give in to demands, when to exert her own authority, and when to appeal to the loyalty of her subjects. Despite the challenges, Tashmetu-zericha was able to keep Assyria stable. Her wisdom and influence ensured that her sons, though young, would eventually ascend to the throne. She made sure that they were presented as the legitimate heirs, with a clear line of succession. Her sons' education and military training, combined with the strength of her leadership, made it clear that they would be ready to take up their father's mantle when the time came. Through this careful maneuvering, Tashmetu-zericha made sure that Assyria's power would not be weakened by the loss of Shamshi-Adad. The queen's efforts to stabilize the empire were not limited to the court and the political structures within Assyria. She also worked to preserve the military's strength and ensure that the empire's borders were secure. Shamshi-Adad's military campaigns had expanded Assyria's territory significantly, and Tashmetu-zericha knew that the empire's survival depended on keeping those territories intact. She communicated with the generals, reaffirming the loyalty of the army to the throne, and ensured that the military remained united in the face of external threats. In addition to the military and political matters, Tashmetu-zericha took the opportunity to strengthen Assyria's alliances. She reached out to neighboring kingdoms and city-states, reaffirming Assyria's position in the region and ensuring that any potential threats were kept at bay. Her diplomatic efforts ensured that Assyria would not face foreign aggression during the fragile transition period. She understood that Assyria's power was not only derived from its armies but also from its relationships with other kingdoms. And she worked tirelessly to protect those alliances. Through her guidance, the transition of power was smoother than anyone could have hoped for. While her sons were still being prepared for the responsibility of ruling, Tashmetu-zericha acted as the regent, taking on the mantle of leadership with grace and wisdom. The queen's ability to manage the political, military, and diplomatic challenges during this difficult time preserved the integrity of Assyria, ensuring that the empire did not fall into chaos. In the years that followed, as her sons ascended to the throne, Tashmetu-zericha's influence did not wane. Even after her sons took control, she remained a trusted advisor, offering her counsel on matters of statecraft, military strategy, and diplomacy. Her role in Assyria's history would never be forgotten. Though her husband's reign had been defined by military conquests, it was Tashmetu-zericha's leadership during the empire's most vulnerable moment that ensured its continued strength. The death of Shamshi-Adad I marked the end of one era for Assyria and the beginning of another. But thanks to Tashmetu-zericha's foresight, wisdom, and leadership, Assyria emerged from this period of uncertainty stronger than ever. Her influence, not just as a queen but as a ruler in her own right, would echo through the ages, ensuring that her legacy was forever intertwined with the fate of Assyria. Tashmetu-zericha's legacy was never one to be overlooked, though her name may not have been etched in the grand monuments or celebrated in the same way as her husband, Shamshi-Adad I. Her influence was felt throughout Assyria for generations to come. She was the silent architect of the empire's greatest achievements, and her wisdom, foresight, and leadership during times of turmoil ensured that Assyria's strength would endure long after her time. After Shamshi-Adad's death, the transition of power was completed successfully, and her sons ascended to the throne. As regent, Tashmetu-zericha had paved the way for their rule, ensuring that they were well prepared to continue the work of their father. But her role did not end there. Even as her sons assumed leadership, she remained a vital advisor, guiding them through the complex political and military landscapes that awaited them. Her influence extended beyond the royal court and military matters. Tashmetu-zericha's vision for Assyria went beyond simple governance. She understood the importance of legacy. She worked to ensure that Assyria's history, its strength, and its power would be preserved for future generations. Her careful leadership ensured that Assyria's foundations remained intact, with the central authority of the monarchy held firm even during the most challenging times. Under her watch, the empire remained a unified and dominant force in the ancient Near East. Her legacy was also defined by her role as a mother. The sons she raised became kings in their own right, continuing the work that she and Shamshi-Adad had started. They ruled with the same determination and vision that Tashmetu-zericha had instilled in them during their upbringing. Her guidance had shaped them into leaders who would not only rule but protect Assyria from internal decay and external threats. It was through her influence that Assyria's monarchy remained strong, as her children carried the torch forward, embodying the values and strength that she had passed on. Her influence, however, was not confined solely to her family. Assyria's court, its political structure, and its military were all shaped by Tashmetu-zericha's touch. She had a hand in the formation of alliances, the crafting of treaties, and the consolidation of power in the region. Her diplomatic negotiations with neighboring kingdoms and city-states ensured Assyria's supremacy, keeping rival factions at bay and preserving the peace when needed. Her ability to navigate complex political situations ensured that Assyria's power was never undermined by external forces. Even after her sons took the throne, Tashmetu-zericha remained a figure of great influence. Her voice was heard in the decisions of the royal court, and her advice continued to guide the empire through its challenges. The nobles, The military commanders and the court officials all respected her, recognizing her as a ruler in her own right. She had earned her place not only as the queen consort but as a leader who shaped the course of Assyrian history. In the years following Shamshi-Adad's death, Assyria continued to expand under the rule of her sons. But it was clear that the stability she had ensured during the transitional period played a key role in the empire's continued success. The power struggles that had once threatened to tear the kingdom apart were no longer present. And Assyria remained a cohesive force. Her children, trained in the ways of governance and military leadership, continued to solidify Assyria's control over its vast territories, expanding its influence even further. But it was Tashmetu-zericha's careful guidance during the most difficult years of transition that ensured their success. The empire thrived, and Assyria's cultural, military, and administrative accomplishments became the stuff of legend. Tashmetu-zericha's role in shaping this enduring legacy cannot be overstated. While Shamshi-Adad's military conquests were often the focus of historical accounts, it was Tashmetu-zericha's quiet strength and political brilliance that truly solidified Assyria's position in the ancient world. Her influence was not only felt during her lifetime but also in the reigns of future Assyrian rulers. The structures she helped put in place continued to serve the empire long after her death. Her careful diplomacy, her ability to unify the nobility, her wisdom in managing internal conflicts, and her unparalleled skill in maintaining Assyria's military might were all elements that shaped the Assyrian Empire into one of the most powerful and enduring civilizations of the ancient world. Even centuries after her death, Tashmetu-zericha was remembered as the queen who had held Assyria together during its most fragile moments. The queen whose wisdom and strength had ensured the continued success of her family and her people. Though the Assyrian Empire eventually declined and fell, Tashmetu-zericha's legacy lived on in the stories of her leadership and her contributions to Assyria's greatness. In the quiet halls of Assur, in the chambers where she once worked tirelessly to guide her kingdom, the echoes of her influence remained. Tashmetu-zericha's legacy was a testament to the power of strategic thinking, diplomacy, and the enduring strength of a ruler who knew how to build not only an empire but a legacy that would survive the ravages of time. Her story, though less celebrated than the military conquests of her husband or sons, was no less important. It was Tashmetu-zericha's quiet brilliance that helped Assyria become the powerhouse it was. And it was her strength that ensured its survival in the most challenging of times. Her legacy, written not in monuments or inscriptions, but in the very fabric of Assyria's success, remained a beacon of leadership for generations to come. As the years passed and the Assyrian Empire continued to grow and evolve, the figure of Tashmetu-zericha remained etched in the hearts of the people who had lived through the reigns of both Shamshi-Adad I and her sons. Though her name may not have appeared as frequently on the grand monuments or the victory stelae that adorned Assyria's greatest cities, the lasting impact of her leadership was undeniable. She had been the quiet force behind the throne, the steady hand that had steered the empire through its most tumultuous times, and her legacy was one that would be remembered for centuries to come. When Shamshi-Adad I died, the empire had faced a crisis. The sudden loss of a king who had expanded the borders of Assyria and solidified its power was a moment that could have fractured the kingdom. But through Tashmetu-zericha's wise leadership, Assyria weathered that storm. The transition from her husband's reign to that of their sons was smooth. With the empire's power intact and its future secure, her ability to manage the shifting tides of court politics, to keep the nobility in check, and to maintain the loyalty of the military commanders and provincial governors was nothing short of extraordinary. Under her careful guidance, Assyria did not only survive but thrived. The empire's borders remained stable, its economy continued to grow, and its military strength was maintained. Even when faced with external threats and internal unrest, the peace that Tashmetu-zericha brokered between the warring factions within the royal court, and the alliances she carefully cultivated with neighboring kingdoms, ensured that Assyria's place in the ancient world remained unchallenged. Tashmetu-zericha's role as a mother was just as critical as her political and diplomatic acumen. She had raised her sons to understand the complexities of leadership, to appreciate the delicate balance between strength and diplomacy, and to value the continuity of Assyria's empire above personal ambition. When her sons took the throne, They were not just heirs to the title of king. They were men shaped by their mother's wisdom. Men who understood what it meant to govern with both power and grace. Her legacy, however, was not only reflected in her son's reigns but in the structures she helped establish. Assyria's administration, its military organization, and its diplomatic strategies were all influenced by Tashmetu-zericha's vision. She understood that an empire could not stand solely on the strength of its armies or the might of its kings. It was the careful management of people, resources, and relationships that ensured the empire's survival, and Tashmetu-zericha excelled in this art. As the years turned to decades, the empire she helped build continued to thrive, although it would eventually face new challenges that would lead to its eventual decline. Yet, the foundation of Assyria was laid during the reigns of Shamshi-Adad I and Tashmetu-zericha, and their efforts provided the empire with the strength to endure long after their deaths. Even as the empire crumbled, historians and chroniclers would remember the remarkable woman who had helped guide Assyria through some of its most fragile moments. The story of Tashmetu-zericha, queen and regent, mother and ruler, is a testament to the power of leadership that transcends traditional roles. She was not merely the wife of a great king or the mother of future rulers. She was a queen in her own right. One whose influence shaped the very fabric of Assyria's existence. Her story is one of resilience, wisdom, and the quiet strength that shapes the destiny of empires. In the end, Tashmetu-zericha's greatest triumph was not the expansion of Assyria's borders or the victories won on distant battlefields, but the way she ensured that the empire's legacy would continue long after her death. Her name may not have been carved into the monuments of Assyria's great cities, but the strength of her leadership lived on in the empire she helped preserve and the future she helped secure. The history of Assyria was defined by many great kings and warriors, but it was the steady hand of Tashmetu-zericha that ensured the empire's legacy would be carried forward. In the quiet chambers of Assur, in the royal court where she once reigned as both mother and ruler, the echoes of her leadership lived on. Her legacy, not just as the wife of Shamshi-Adad I, but as a queen who shaped the course of history, would endure for as long as the empire itself. And so, the story of Tashmetu-zericha comes to its end, but her influence never truly fades. In the hearts of those who remember her, her wisdom, courage, and devotion to Assyria's greatness continue to inspire. A reminder that the power to change the course of history often lies in the hands of those who work behind the scenes, shaping the future with quiet strength and unyielding resolve.